And welcome to Catholics Coast to Coast. I'm your host, Ace McKay, where our website, EWTNradio.net, is stocked up, ready at Podcast Central with some of the best podcasts that you can hear from around the world. And the great thing about it, you can download and listen on demand anytime. So we want to spotlight this week heading into Easter, as we've enjoyed today with family and friends and with Mass, an opportunity with Poco-A-Poco, talking about Jesus' authority through his obedience to the Father and what it meant when he went to the cross. On this week's Catholics Coast to Coast.
You're listening to the Poco-A-Poco podcast, sponsored by Spirit Juice Studios.
Poco a poco vamos a llegar. Somos peregrinos and you know that's who we are. We make our way. Hey, hey.
Hey, everybody.
I'm Father PT.
I'm Father Angelus.
I'm Father Innocent.
And I am Father Martin.
That happens about like once every 10 episodes where
Yeah.
Angelus attempts
I
to
look for
hijack.
I look for an opening.
It's usually when it's like his, like, he needs something to get himself excited.
Yeah.
He's like not into it.
I am always into it.
Do you hear the postulants? They're like cleaning the bath. We have a company and they're cleaning right outside that door.
When we finished the last episode, went out there, they were all there. It's like they were
Spying on us.
Yeah, but I don't think they were doing that.
It's okay.
It's all right. You can just hear them.
Not really, but we'll just. Father Angelus, are you doing okay? As
I am.
you know, the listeners know at this point that we often record. Well, no, we strictly record multiple episodes at a time.
If it was often, they should be a little bit easier.
At this point, it's only.
Strictly.
And typically, it's 4 episodes, which is a stretch for especially for Father
For
Angelus.
specific people, it's hard.
I mean, it is for everybody, but
I'm just.
do you want to just have like a 3 episode contract, and we'll just do the fourth one without you?
Working out contracts, that'd be great.
Maybe we'll do the first one without Father PT, or you're good with all 4.
Hey, I never say anything.
No, that's
let's
true.
Reduce,
That's true.
Let's
This is-
reduce the games here. No,
We were talking about
a full season.
Sorry. We're talking about a certain basketball player who plays about half the games he's on a team. We got one, Father Angelus over there.
Wow.
I am entirely and fully committed to this operation.
What's it? Oh, load management. He's all about load management.
Yeah.
You know,
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah. So like in basketball, especially where you play, 3 games in 4 nights or 4 games in 5
Oh,
nights.
yeah, you have to
might take a
manage
game
minutes.
off. Yeah.
Manage minutes. all
Well,
that.
some players would take the night off, load management, as far as like the load that they're carrying, so that way they can be more fresh for the playoffs. And so
Yeah.
we're just trying to get you
I
ready.
just feel like
That's
I
like a real
carry-
thing?
That's right.
It is.
Do like top players do that?
They do. And so there's this whole thing because let's say, for instance, a team comes to a city once a year, like the Warriors, for instance. They come to Cleveland or wherever it is. And that night, Steph Curry, Draymond, and because sometimes do it like together as like a whole like group, or even like if Steph Curry's not playing, it's a big thing where this one fan came to see Steph Curry and now he's not playing because he's played 3 games in 4 nights. And so,
So Steph does that as well?
Yeah.
I think kind of they all do now, right?
yeah.
I know a lot of people listen to hear me.
But the thing is, like, we're trying to give you time off, so like you're ready for money time, which is Advent, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're ready. That's your playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
Money time. So question,
that's a long ways
will
away.
he go to the game and sit on the bench?
yeah,
Oh, so he'll be there.
yeah, and like he might shoot around and stuff like that, so you can see that. But once again, it's a different experience. Besides, like not having him in the game, so
Super interesting.
yeah, it's like sometimes like how Father Mary like emotion checks out for us. Sometimes, we're like,
Often.
hey, we want you here, but
Like
he's
really
not-
here.
Yeah,
But he can only do so many. So he has to, when he goes strong, he has to take a couple.
some
time.
sometimes off. Yeah,
Can we go back to Frankenstein?
come on, Frankie.
I just want to, in case there's anybody out there that is maybe concerned about my commitment to the team here, I am very committed.
You just asked the question, do we have to do
I'm just always
four in a
I'm just
row?
vulnerable. It was like just 4 in a row is hard.
It's a lot. It's a long day.
It's not easy being me.
Bro, we accept the vulnerability and we thank you for
And
it.
Father
but
Mark
we
said,
just
Mary
gently-
said, get over yourself.
we just gently push it away. We just push it right back to you.
Father Mark Mary hears me out. It's the same thing every time. Do we have to do 4? And he's like, I hear you. And then it's like, we're doing 4. Get over it.
Well,
It's interesting
I said, or we can do 3 and just add another recording time.
Yeah.
You know.
And the hard thing is getting us all together to be able to have the 4 of us to schedule and do it. So that's the priority. We just want to be together, all 4 of us.
Doing 1 or 2 at a time would be like
Most of the
optimal, but it's just
No. possible.
It's not possible or cost effective.
And just to be equal, like opportunists about this, where like especially our schedules are difficult to get together because people are taking 2 or 3 weeks of solitude, at a time. And so it's kind of tough just to get.
I did not think about that. That is
just to get all of our schedules together. 7-day hermitages, 2-week solitude.
I was
So
in Texas. I was at Seek. I mean,
now I'm just at the youth center cleaning the bathrooms. That's all I'm doing.
that's all you're doing.
That's it.
Bro, I can teach you how to be a local servant, bro.
I literally know the guy who cleans the bathroom.
I totally do that.
It's not you.
Oh.
All right. So this episode, we're not going to fully go into it yet. This episode is Wednesday before Palm Sunday. So Palm Sunday's coming up. And for some reason, thinking of Palm Sunday and then eventually Holy Week, the trigger one makes me think of seminary because I think we tend to be in charge of liturgies when we were seminarians, and so there's a lot more elaborate things. So for this week, all I want to do is talk about seminary we had with the rector of the seminary, Monsignor Vicari. We used to have these. We had oral finals, like midterm and final. And Father Anderson and I went before Father PT for one of them, and we all had this like strategy, like, so here's what you got to do. You got to get control of the conversation. You know what I mean? And you just got to like, and like, so he'll ask the question, whatever, and then you just like take it and you just run with it, and you just don't stop running with it, right?
Don't give him any space. You just got to go with it.
Yeah. And basically, what I don't remember that really working out for you, but particularly, I wanted to share about the Lateran 4 part. I think that's just really funny.
Yeah. So this was, so second semester. And so we covered 800s till the 1500, whatever the.
You're going to give us a history lesson here? Let's go.
No, I'm just like trying to, part of this is for me remembering what we're covering here. But anyway, what's the council? The real, here we go. The historian. Council of Trent. Thank you. Oh, easy back this. And so anyway, you get an outline for a specific period of time. And so this one was the 1200s. And there's just a lot of stuff happening in church history. It was kind of complicated. And I was like pretty good as far as like remembering things, except I confused the Fourth Lateran Council with like the Council of Constance Basil Ferrer or something like that. And the Council of Constance Basil Ferrer was like kind of insignificant.
It wasn't a big deal.
It wasn't a big deal. It was like a Passover thing in terms of history. And I just conflated the two. And so I'm talking to Monsignor Vicari, and I was like, yeah, and so Fourth Lateran Council, not that big of a deal. It's kind of like blah, 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 and that. And he goes, wait, sorry. Just go back to what you just said. You just say the Fourth Lateran Council is not a big deal. And like at that moment, like I registered, I realized, oh my gosh, I totally screwed up here. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. It actually is a big deal. And then like I started filling in information. But like in that moment, I had the experience where I could have said something like, yeah, and I think your mother's a horrible cook, and he wouldn't have reacted as strongly as he did to like that point,
It's like making fun of one of the councils is like making fun of one of his kids.
Yeah, basically. But then, so just furthering out like the wonderful advice, and I believed it that you guys told me, because then the second part of it, after the outline, we had to talk about a book on the Council of Trent, which, surprise, surprise, I didn't read. And so my idea was going into this, cool. These guys took this this They said just control the narrative, say what you need to say, and what you know about this book. Don't let him kind of like steer the conversation. And then so I'm coming towards the end of the outline, and I said, and just to mention, since we're kind of getting there, Monsignor, I just like to mention these 3 points about the book. He says, wait, before we get there, he kind of cuts me off. Let me ask you about this. I was like, no, but I really want to say these 3 points. And he goes, no. And so like he just basically wrestled it.
He owned you, bro.
Yeah. and I'm like, and I can wrestle for a certain point, but like I know I'm defeated. I'm like, all right, what do you got for me? And like, thanks be to God, or maybe, I don't know. But anyway, it's just, he asked me questions that I actually knew. And so I was able to kind of fake it until I made it, which I did.
Bro, I remember killing that final. I don't know what your problem was.
I mean, I got an A in it, but it was just a lot more of it wasn't as smooth.
No.
It wasn't as smooth as you guys presented it to be. And anyway, because even Father Francesco was like, yeah, bro, just own it. Because even I think he did the same thing the previous semester because he had to go someplace earlier for home visit. I think. And so, but it is what it is.
Fourth Lateran Council. I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but telling that to a church, like a priest, church historian, no big deal.
And the ironic thing is, like, Franciscans had it. Like, it was big for our order. It was big for like the church and the Eucharist. It was a very big.
It was a big one,
objectively speaking.
Yeah, I mean,
I was like, yeah, you could forget about that one. I don't even know we had a Fourth Lateran Council. So
nice one.
Yeah, hopefully people were amused by that.
Thank you. I feel like, it's people who really know the Fourth Lateran Council, I think, are going to particularly appreciate.
And if you don't Google it and just look at all the different decrees that came out of it,
is that when transubstantiation was
probably.
Oh, now you're pushing that.
defined? I think so.
There was another.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Did you just say? Oh yeah, I love that.
I mean, we're talking about vulnerability and all these different things. And I was very comfortable in being, I guess, vulnerable and just open and honest, especially in oral finals because sometimes teachers push you to the place where I want to see how much you know. And so during the, what do you call those exams? Third year that we took, comprehensive exams, you sit down with a teacher and they ask you questions on a specific subject and they try to just sometimes like see how much you know. And it was my Father Cacavalli with like not moral theology, it was Catholic social teaching. And anyway, I don't remember too much from that class. And so he was like, hey, what about this principle? I was like, oh, this principle means this. And he goes, and what document did that come up in? And I was like, Rerum Novarum? Because like that's the
like quintessential document, solid guess.
His Father Cacavalli is just total a father, pastor, gentle heart. He's like, no. You want to guess again? And I was like, I'm thinking in my head, like, is there a Rerum Novarum 2? Like, what am I?
Probably a follow-up document to that.
And I was like, hey, Father, you got me. I have no idea. He goes, come on. I taught you this in class. And I was like, I get the tenderness, but it's not helping. I have no idea what this is. And he goes, it's this document. And then so he asked me another question about a principle, follows up, what document was this in? I was like, hands up this. It's like, I have no idea. You asked me before. I have no idea.
I'm not a big document guy. Council guy. I'm not a big document guy.
I'm just trying to get through this test. I have no idea. But anyway, because that's a pass or fail test. But anyway.
You passed.
I did. I'm here.
You're pretty.
Yeah.
Summa cum. What was your magna cum laude?
Yeah, I was the one. I was 3.8. I forgot my GPA. 3.7, 3.8. So yeah.
This talking about seminary makes me think of Father Angelus when they're like, "We're concerned because you look bored."
You like bringing that up.
You look bored in class. Wait, no, wait a second. I am bored. I am bored in class.
Hope seminarians don't, or seminary professors don't listen to this.
We love you. We're thankful for our education.
I had a great experience in seminary. It was just one class, actually. It wasn't just one class.
Hey, sometimes good things are boring. It's all right. All right. And so what we're going to kind of like really focus in on here is it's been kind of, if you will, like a subplot throughout our Lenten journey so far. Which is looking at authority. And it was on the episode talking about the woman at the well where Father Innocent talked about Jesus and his authority and claiming his authority, particularly his authority to like tell you who you are, and that we don't even have that authority to tell ourselves who we are, but like he has it. And right, like all like the main plot, if you will, if I remember, cameraman Chris explained this to me the other day, but like in a story, there's like a main plot and a subplot. I don't know if it's just called the main plot and the subplot. But
sounds good.
Thanks, cameraman Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But right. So we've like the main thing we've been focusing on is just this journey of like surrendering. And I do think that throughout the Lenten journey, as Jesus' own life is, it's like an ongoing sort of kind of leaning into poverty, and it is like a kind of journey in which we kind of like grow through stripping. I think was it John on the Cross was it his image about like when you climb the mountain, mm-hmm. like you see what everybody like left behind so they can keep going up the mountain. And so we kind of began with the surrendering of control going into the desert. We talked about like the surrendering of a lot of the comforts and allowing the Lord to lead us kind of away and then apart to the mountain of theophany. We talked about kind of leaving behind the shadows being kind of clothed with the light and the truth of who we are. We talked about sort of kind of being clothed with the fullness of hope and radical hope in Jesus. And and also, and then, you know, his conquering of the grave, or I guess, and then like showed the hope of the resurrection. But then again, there's like this authority, right? And I think that particularly in the desert, right? So we began the first Sunday of Lent. We begin in the desert. There is this part in which like, where Jesus from all eternity, right? He like receives like his authority from the Father, and there's this sense of like, okay, first we're establishing that what I have from the Father, and it's like. And so he's able to, he like battles, if you will, these temptations of the enemy, and he's like living in like this Father and sort of establishing himself rooted and sharing sort of by nature and the authority of the Father. And then we go to the mountaintop, right? And there's the Father speaking. This is my beloved Son. Listen to him, right? He's receiving the authority, or it's being manifest that he's receiving it, like it's from the Father. And he's there with Moses and Elijah, giving a witness that like he is, if you will, he has the authority he says he has. And then I think with so over like he's showing his. First, like with the Samaritan woman, like he's showing that like where he has the authority to be like this new worship, and he's establishing this authority that like he is the one to be worshipped in spirit and in truth, and that he has authority over sin, and that he is the Messiah, he's the one sent. He has the authority also to tell us who we are, and he's the authority to name us and to like identify us, and it's like not our sin. It's not something we do for ourselves. I think then with the healing of the blind man, he's showing that like. He's basically saying, like, echoing, like, let there be light. So at the beginning of time, through him, right, there was all of creation, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And here Jesus basically says, let there be light to this blind man, and there's light. He's revealing his authority over sin last week, and then the authority over sin, over nature. And then just the last episode we did where he shows that, like, I am the resurrection and life, and that I have authority over death. And that I have authority to bring life, and so there's this whole journey of authority, and that he comes, and I really like, again, when you mentioned it, Father Innocent, like it's probably 4 or 5 weeks ago again, like the just Jesus like with authority, like telling this woman who she is, Jesus with authority telling Lazarus to come out. There's this way in which it's like he's a conquering king. Like, and he's coming to reestablish his authority, and he's coming to conquer, if you will, like these enemies and these other things, trying to fight for authority in his kingdom. And there's for me, there's like this real sense of like of power, of authority, of like confidence, and there's just something very, very strong about Jesus on this journey. Of conquering and reestablishing like his authority and claiming back his authority. And then, so kind of before we go to Palm Sunday, continue just touching on any of like the journey we've been on up to here. Would anybody like to comment? This is like an oral exam here.
No, so
you just gotta walk.
No, there's 3 things actually I want to talk about.
You guys just gotta own it.
If not, that's
so
okay.
No,
I was just listening. I mean, I think you have. This is me just being nice, but you present like the journey so well. So I was just, there's a lot. I'm like, whoa, there's just a lot there. So that's why I was just like, wow, like, what do I think about that? So we've been on a journey. Could
you just imagine that? Like you're in an exam with Monsignor Vicari. Like, well, I just need to take a second. I'm just so moved by you, Monsignor.
Right.
I know the answer, but I just need a second.
I just need to like, can I just be grateful for you? Wow.
Yeah. You're just, I'm not just saying that. Like you're really, like,
hey, listen,
I'm really moved. And just to be here in this place, I'm just so moved by the fact I'm a seminarian.
I'm being sincere. There's a lot going on. We've been on a journey, so that's just. I mean, I actually I'll comment more on just like what this week brings, but I think this whole journey, it's funny, like I just feel like we're getting to know Jesus, and that's kind of what stands out, is that like you're getting to know his heart, right? And we're talking about him as coming as the Son of God, coming as like this, like with his power and authority to be the Lord of our own life, the Lord of our own identity, the Lord of disease, the Lord of death, the Lord over death. Like he he comes, but he's just revealing himself to us. He's just revealing his heart to us. And that's what I guess I'm most moved by. There's so many encounters of real people over this Lenten journey. And he's again, just revealing himself, who he is as the Son of God. And we're at the climax of the journey now, which is where I'll kind of hold off, because I think as we dive in, I have more to say. But that's what I guess I'm just moved by the way that Jesus has shown himself and revealed his heart to us over this Lent, and the gift of who he is.
I don't know the etymology of the word authority. Anyway, this is more like just speaking it out loud. But author is somewhat attached, I would guess, to authority, maybe.
Just own it, bro.
Sorry, retract previous statement. Author is attached to the word authority. See how I did there?
Yeah.
Anyway, but just even maybe it's helpful looking at it like that, because sometimes we could struggle with like authority and like people telling us what to do, and obviously it's different than people as opposed to Jesus, where like he's the author of our life, like he's the one who's writing the story and just going to bring it to a happy conclusion, or just to bring it to a place where if we give control over to him, or we surrender these things, like, and we give him authority and allow him to be the author that writes the narrative and writes the script, as opposed to trying to edit and say, no, let's make it this way or that way. Things are just different. And so, but he in himself has the authority because it has been given to him on high, and he says that right before like Pontius Pilate, like you would have no authority if it wasn't given already to you, And so he recognizes who he is. He knows who he is as a son of the Father, and this what his mission is, and his mission is to save us from sin and death, and to show us the way to the Father. And it's in him that these things happen. And so, yeah, it's just beautiful because like his authority isn't one that lords it over us. It's not one that causes us to have to like bow down and tremble before him, like in this like dictator. Own it. Dictatorship type of authority. Like he doesn't yield or wield a heavy hammer. Basically, he's not mean. That's what I'm trying to get at. But he's always gentle and, come to me all who are heavy laden and burdened, and I will give you rest. That's his authority.
Right. So this is beautiful. Like that's the summary this is like Jesus comes to show us the covenant again. And now we're going to see what he's willing to do for the sake of being faithful to his Father. And he's obviously willing to go to the furthest end of death and assume all of our sin and brokenness on himself. So he shows us what it's like to be obedient.
Good Holy Week. Blessed Holy Week.
Bye.
Peace, y'all.
Talking about the authority of Christ as he went to the cross and paid the price for our sins. That's Poco-A-Poco. If you want to hear the full podcast or previous episodes, you can check it out at our Podcast Central section at EWTNradio.net. And when we take a short break, we're going to head back into continuing our Easter Sunday together. And you might have had questions if you went to Mass. Father Joseph and the Restless Crew are going to unveil those mysteries of the Mass with Restless, coming up next on this week's Catholics Coast to Coast.
If it's central to the faith, you can find it on EWTN Podcast Central, featuring the best of EWTN Radio, as well as faith-filled podcasts from our friends and affiliates across the nation, all in one place, all free. The destination for great Catholic audio programming is EWTN Podcast Central. It's like podcast heaven. Visit EWTN.com/radio/podcasts today.
You're listening to Catholics Coast to Coast. I'm Ace McKay as we get into Restless. Just a reminder, while you're at Mass, it's okay to ask questions. We're revealing the mystery of them this week with Father Joseph and the Restless Crew on our Podcast Central section and Catholics Coast to Coast.
And welcome back to Restless. My name is Father Joseph Gill, priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and you've joined myself, Joe, and Paul as together we restlessly seek the face of Christ in today's mixed up and crazy world. And today let's talk about some mayhem. Some Mass mayhem. Let's talk about the Mass. This is Why Do Catholics Do That? Part 3. So we've had 2 where we talked about various things like can Catholics get tattoos or whether Catholics can curse. But I think there's a lot of questions out there about the Mass. What is the Mass? How do you make the Mass not boring? How do you get something out of the Mass? What is some of the details about the Mass? Because there's a lot of different details that if someone just walked in off the street, they may say, well, why do Catholics, make the 3 signs of the crosses at the gospel? And what does the word Mass come from? And all that sort of stuff. So we're going to dive into some of those questions and maybe some questions that you guys have. And let's see if you can answer these tough questions. Some of your theological knowledge, Paul.
What?
Your 8 years of CCD.
I didn't have CCD. I was in Catholic.
Yeah, that's
school.
right. You're sorry, 12 years.
I did CYO for 2 years of confirmation prep because I went to public high school.
All I know about CYO is a basketball league.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you didn't play that.
I learned everything that I know.
5'2".
Thanks.
Sorry,
5'5" and a quarter. And a quarter. And a quarter. Yeah. No.
Muggsy Bogues was only 5'3" and played in the NBA.
I think 95% of what I know about the faith occurred subsequent to high school.
Yeah, that's probably most people, except for Joe, because Joe had my confirmation class.
So 97% of what I know came after high school. Is what you're saying? Just kidding. Just kidding. Father Joe was a great teacher way back when.
Way back when.
See prior episodes.
See for reference for prior episodes.
Please do. So let's talk about the Mass. So first of all, the word Mass. What does that mean? Where does it come from? Do you know?
Well, it comes from the dismissal in Latin, right? Ite missa est.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Misa.
Go therefore it is finished, right?
It sounds like a Jar Jar Binks thing. Misa
It
is.
does. Yeah, it means go therefore it is finished, right? So go, like mass is the idea of being sent, right?
Right. Like a missionary, or other words that come from that mission. Yeah. Be sent. Exactly. So the whole point of it. Have you ever thought it ironic, though, that the very end of Mass is thanks be to God, it's over?
That's a joke.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Yeah. We're laughing.
Insert laugh track.
I always thought that was humorous. They're like,
Producer pleasing.
Mass is over. Thanks be to God.
What's particularly humorous at the end of the Easter Vigil when we're actually mean it that way sometimes.
Oh. How long?
Depends on how many readings.
I did all 9 at my Easter Vigil.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Oh, we don't do that.
Come on, get hardcore.
No.
Well, I don't choose. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't say, hey, Father, you really should be doing more reading.
Go big or go home.
There is a certain point you reach in the Easter Vigil, you almost forget what you're doing, It's like after confirmations and all the sacraments of initiation, there was a moment where you're like, wait, why am I here again? It's been so long, I almost forgot what brought me here, That's how I experienced it this year.
Oh, see, yeah.
All of a sudden, I almost woke up. I was like, wait, how did I get here?
I didn't have any sacraments of initiation, and that takes out like a full 45 minutes out of the ceremony. So it's,
we don't do that at the Basilica either.
Yeah, I know we had people being baptized, received as such, confirmed, everything available.
That's exciting when you have adults being baptized
and kids.
You had kids too. Nice.
One family. Yeah,
that's really wonderful.
A couple. Yeah, good amount.
Where they come from? I mean, like what was their background? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
That's far above my pay grade. I was just there to hold the thurible.
I would have been asking him questions. How'd you convert?
Yeah, I should have interrupted Father Corey's homily to do so, but...
Yes, well, it's hard to do that. Father Corey's homilies are about a minute and a half.
It's actually Father Harry, although I should say Father Corey's Good Friday homily went on for like 20 minutes.
Whoa. Yeah. He was trying to give everyone penance in the church.
I felt sanctified by it. It was a good homily.
So back to the Eucharist, and Father Corey, I hope I did not listen to this.
I love Father Corey, I should say. Father Corey was a good homily.
What's up with the Eucharistic fast? What are the rules? Because a lot of people ask me that question.
1 hour before you receive.
So...
Is that true? It used to be 3.
So...
It used to be all day.
Well, it used to be since midnight.
Yeah, it used to be all day.
And then it was 3. Yeah. And then it was 1.
And then it kind of went away for like 30 years after, and from the 60s on for a little while.
I don't think it ever officially went.
No. I mean, like it was, went the way of...
Okay, what's the real rule?
Yeah.
You're correct. An hour before you receive Holy Communion. But what if you go to a Mass that's like 2 hours long? Can you like eat up to the first reading?
So you're saying I could have brought a snack to the vigil?
You could have. Just kidding. Don't really do that. No, but what's the purpose of the Eucharistic fast?
I mean, I think it makes, well, I don't know what the actual answer is, but like for me, it makes the whole act of going to Mass more intentional, right? Because it's not just, I can't just decide to go to Mass on a whim. It's like, all right, well, I had to decide an hour ago. Like it means I'm preparing my body for it. I'm also preparing my mind for it. That's at least part of it. I don't know what the actual reason is, but that's how I experience it.
I mean, preparing your body to some extent.
Yeah. I think it's to make it clear to our mouth that what we're receiving is not just another snack. This is truly the flesh and blood of Christ. So does gum break the Eucharistic fast?
You once told me it did, so I assume so.
I think though in the catechism or the canon law, whatever it is, says it's water and necessary medicine.
Yes, agreed. Water and
gum is not necessary medicine or water.
Correct. That is it. Yep. That is the Eucharistic fast. Make sure you do it. Definitely. Don't be chewing gum in Mass. It's something that drives me crazy. I see a lot of people do that, especially young people.
Or be walking in with your coffee.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of coffee.
I've seen a lot of coffee in Mass. Yeah. Well,
coffee has calories, by the way. It's not just water.
Really? Like if it's black coffee?
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 calories. It's got a little oil.
3 or 4
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the oil and the caffeine and all that.
True.
Yeah, that's true. So, but during the Mass, do you ever notice that the priest says a bunch of like private prayers to himself?
Secrets.
Yeah. Do you know what they are?
Prayers.
One of them is when the altar server pours water over his hands and he says something like, "Lord, wash away my iniquities and cleanse me of all my sins."
Yes. that actually has a really interesting backstory of why they do that. Because so in the early church, if you're taking up the collection, what is it? It's not money. It's bread and olives and chickens and like whatever you're actually offering. And oftentimes a lot of food items, things that are messy and dirty. And so the priest is receiving these at the altar and he's like, I got to wash my hands after that. And a lot of the things that the priests do is, it started out very practical and became very symbolic. Like even what the priest wears, the alb was just simply the toga that people would have worn in the first century. Not toga, tunic.
Yeah.
Tunic, yeah. The
toga is like the Greek,
another thing.
like college Greek fairs. They wear togas.
Yeah, but no, the Romans wear togas too. Yeah. But yeah, okay, so that's one of the private prayers. When else does the priest say a private prayer?
When he or the deacon mixes the water and wine, I don't remember the full prayer.
Yes, when he mixes the water and wine.
He says something like, by the mystery of the mingling of this water and wine, something.
May we come to share in the divinity of Christ, who humbled himself to share in our humanity.
There you go.
And that one's pretty rich because just like once you put water and wine together, you can't take them out. They're mixed together forever. So in the same way, like Christ's humanity and divinity cannot be separated.
Yeah.
They're together forever. So you're good at this, Paul. Do you
Then
know?
there's other prayer. Well, I don't know. I knew that. Yeah,
you were a server.
No, I knew the Lord watch man, please come. I knew that there are. I know where the prayers are, but I cannot tell you exactly what they are.
What is the official blessing the priest gives the deacon for proclaiming the gospel?
Yes, the priest says to the deacon, he says, "May the Lord be in your heart and on your lips, that you may proclaim His holy gospel worthily and well."
But what does a priest say then when they say something similar, right?
He does say something similar. He says, "Cleanse my heart and my lips, Almighty God, that I may worthily proclaim your holy gospel." And I just opened my Roman missal to read that from there.
But it was so seamless, nobody would have known otherwise.
Yeah, I know. I shouldn't have revealed my secrets. And actually, when a priest kisses the gospel, he also says, "May the words of this gospel through the words of this gospel, may our sins be wiped away."
Right.
Now, what's going on during the Agnus Dei? Because the priest's doing all kinds of stuff that nobody realizes.
That's true.
He's genuflecting. He's moving things around. Walk us through that a little bit, Father.
He's not saying the Agnus Dei.
Not saying the Agnus Dei.
Specifically for the people to say.
That's because he's busy waving all of his friends at the back for the sign of peace, right? Flashing peace signs and whatnot.
Wait, so the priest doesn't say the Agnus Dei at all?
I mean, he can, but it's, yeah.
Because sometimes you'll read something, and then or you'll say it privately while the congregation is. In
the ritual, it says, meanwhile, the following is said or sung, not by the priest, just it's said or sung. So, yeah, actually, so there's a couple of things that's going on right there where the priest is saying something. So he takes the host, he breaks it, and he says something.
The fractal rite, right?
The fractioning rite. And he says, "May the mingling of the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ bring eternal life to us to receive it." And that actually has a really interesting backstory too, because back in the early church, dioceses were really small. Like, it's really interesting to me to go to Assisi because you can see Perugia.
Yeah.
And Perugia is a separate diocese. So you can stand in the sea of one diocese and see the head of the other diocese. And that's like pretty mind-boggling when you live in America and like the entire state of Wyoming is one diocese.
Right.
But in those days, if you had like, maybe there were just like 20 churches or 13 churches in your diocese, at the bishop's mass, he would fracture the Eucharist and the deacons would take a particle of the bishop's host and bring it to all the other masses that were being celebrated so that the pastor could put it in to kind of show that unity with the bishop. So that's how that came from. But now with the words, may the mingling of the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, it wants to make clear that if you receive the body, you also receive the blood. And if you receive the blood, you also receive the body.
That's because the priest fractures the host and then puts part or both halves in the precious blood.
Just part of one half, yeah.
That's why. So she's actually uniting. Because I was thinking, why would the unity be stressed when he's fracturing the host? It's because he's uniting the body with the blood.
Right.
Obviously, they're fully present in both species, but he's uniting the two species of them.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But before that, though, before the canon, before the consecration, Eucharistic prayer, there's other prayers too. So after the "Blessed be God of all creation, for us we have this wine to offer," and then after that, there's like this, and then there's a bow. I'm doing it, which no one can see, but
it looked great though. Let me just say.
Actually, it looked a little Buddhist, to be honest. But
okay, well, I'm not a priest, as it turns out,
or a Buddhist,
as
far as I know.
As far as I know,
a closet Buddhist,
a closet unconscious Buddhist.
Wow, this is the worst type. It goes deep. They're everywhere.
It must be systemic. It goes deep.
Yeah, no, he does say something. He says, "With humble spirit and contrite heart, may we be accepted by you, O Lord, and may our sacrifice in your sight this day be pleasing to you, Lord God." So it's really kind of recognizing that this is a sacrifice.
Let me ask a question, Father. Why is it important that these prayers be said silently or sotto voce and not loud enough for the congregation to hear? Because some priests I have seen will say every one of these loud enough for people to hear.
Yeah. A big reason is because many of these are for the priest's private devotions. They're for the priest. They're not for the people. So the priest needs to make clear when he's speaking on behalf of the people, when he's speaking on behalf of the Lord, and when he's speaking on behalf of himself.
So then, question. So for those of us who occasionally attend the Latin Mass, most of the Mass that the priest says is private.
Yes. That's for a different reason.
Why is that?
That's because nobody could understand Latin.
So they just said it.
Isn't that only in a low mass, or am I not doing?
No, High Mass too.
High Mass too, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, ultimately that really is because, well, for two reasons. One is that the church wanted to make it clear that the sacrifice was valid when a priest offered it. It didn't have, like, the people didn't have to participate. So even if one priest offered the sacrifice, it was still a valid Mass. Unlike, our Protestant brothers and sisters who believe really that's just kind of, it's the congregation that offers the praise to God, not just the priest. They wanted church wanted to say, no, actually, it really is just the priest offering the sacrifice.
Could you say in Novo Sordo, can you say the Eucharistic prayer in a low voice? Or do you have to say it so that it can be heard?
Actually, it says very clearly. The only specific directions is given when you say the words of institution.
Has to be audible, right?
And it says not just audible, but clear and crisp.
Wow, that's so different than Latin Mass, because that's also quiet.
Yes, it says, quote, in the formulas that follow, the words of the Lord should be pronounced clearly and distinctly as the nature of these words require.
But that makes sense to me because it should be crisp, because these words are affecting matter. I mean,
You don't want to slur it.
Right, because then it gets into question of validity.
Right.
Crisp, like slow down and enunciate, right? I like that.
So that's why, and yeah, you make it very known to everyone in the church that these are special words. This is my body. It shouldn't just be like, this is my body.
Trying to think, in the Latin Mass, the only part of the canon that's slightly audible is for us sinners, or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess then he's speaking on behalf of all the people.
Yeah, I think so. And it's only slightly. It actually says it in the missal. It says slightly audible. And so, like, if you're at a Latin Mass, you might hear. Literally, that's it. That's all you hear. And it's like, okay, now I know where I am. I got to flip to the right page because I'm behind, or I'm ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting. In the Latin Mass, often the priest will begin, he'll begin the Gloria. Gloria in excelsis Deo.
And then say it.
And then he'll say the rest, and the choir will just go nuts. They'll start, singing this beautiful long hymn and everything. And the priest's finished, and he just stands there.
Or sits.
Sometimes he sits if it's really long.
Yep.
Kind of interesting. Yeah, the choir has a very outsized role in the traditional Latin Mass.
Yeah, but
it's a high Mass.
Or not. Yes, but it's never in sync. Like the Kyrie, when they sing the Kyrie, it could be 5 minutes long. It's nowhere near where the priest has already said it.
How could a 6-word song be 5 minutes long?
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Well, they say it.
I would be shocked.
They say each one 3 times. So it's actually 9. Lord. It's 9 lines.
Yeah. Wow. Nevertheless.
So anyway, I mean,
it's amazing how long they can hold out that E on Kyrie.
Or how many, in the Agnus Dei, how many Dona Nobis Pacem you could possibly have. You need at least 35.
A minimum.
Why do you need more than one Dona Nobis Pacem?
Because we really want that piece.
Because it was written by Mozart, and that's the way it is.
They were paid by the note.
Is that what it is?
No, I don't know.
Should be.
It's not like newspapers paid by the word or lawyers.
Lawyers are paid by the word?
Yeah, cease and desist, null and void. They mean the same thing.
Paid by the minute.
Oh, that's true.
By the hour.
Well, I'd heard that's why Charles Dickens' novels were so long.
Yeah,
he was paid by the word.
It was in serial. Meaning it was like a chapter would be issued every week.
Is that why some priests' homilies were so long?
Do you get paid by the minute or by the word?
No comment.
I find that your homilies are always appropriate in length.
Thank you. Yeah, now that I've begun, by the way, this is a shameless plug, you can find my podcast at Homilies on aflameforchrist.podbean.com.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
On Spotify.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all my homilies are online now.
Is it on Apple Podcasts?
No. But it's on Google Play and all that, and Spotify and all that stuff. But now that I'm taping my homilies, or taping, that's like a 1990
Taping?
word.
That's good.
Not that I'm recording my homilies.
Will you mail me the cassette?
I will. It's an 8-track. It's a player. They were between like 6 and 8 minutes, and I was like, "Wow!" I thought I went too long. I thought it was like a 12-15 minute, but no, it's shorter.
But your delivery is different into a microphone privately than with a congregation for sure. Probably
That's probably
longer
true.
in person.
Maybe. I don't know.
Oh, so you don't. Oh, so this isn't recorded live.
No, I record it just privately and
okay.
post it. Yeah.
So we don't get. There's no laugh track on it in case you say you're.
There's no laugh track on it.
There's no laugh track.
Do you sub in baby voice crying? I haven't heard any yet, but I've been listening. But you should do that. Have somebody crying in the background,
I surprisingly don't hear that. It never bothers me.
Yeah, priests always say that they don't even notice it.
Some priests do.
I've never noticed
You
it.
get a look.
I don't know. Anyway, there's one more private prayer, and then we'll move on to the next question. But that's right before.
Mighty body and blessed bread of Christ, bring us to everlasting life.
Oh, that's one.
That could be. I've heard a lot of priests say that out loud, though.
Yeah, me too.
That says quietly.
Most priests, yeah.
The other one is right before receiving Holy Communion. He prays, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, who by the will of the Father and the work of the Holy Spirit, through your death gave life to the world. Free me by this, your most holy body and blood, from all my sins and from every evil, and keep me always faithful to your commandments, and never let me be parted from you.
When is that story?
I actually have heard a priest say that one out loud.
Right before receiving Holy Communion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a very...
For the priest, he's Holy Communion.
Yeah, for the priest. And so it's a very private prayer for the priest to...
Oh, okay. That's why you see some priests like bend down for a while.
Yes, and then he genuflects right after that.
Right. Okay. And then receives the blood. Blood.
That's right before. That's right before the Behold the Lamb of God.
Oh, that's right before the right. Okay. Yeah, got it.
So now you know why priests mumble a lot while the Lamb of God is going on. He has a lot of prayers to say.
Right. Right.
But that's a rich moment of just being with the Lord.
Yeah.
A concelebrating priest never says any of these prayers. Right. It's always the main celebrant who always says them.
Most concelebrating priests will say the prayer right before receiving Holy Communion.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Because it's our personal worship of the Lord.
What is required? Now another question for you. We could probably should move on. But what does the concelebrating priest have to say to be like for his to make it qualify for like his mass of the day, so to speak?
So a lot of people don't realize this. Priests are not required to say mass every day.
They're not required to, but they're encouraged.
They're encouraged. Absolutely. Yeah. So what does he have to say? I mean,
typically they say the words institution, or if the whole Eucharistic prayer, they know it.
Because they go like this.
If you know it. But for example, if I'm celebrating, celebrating a mass with Pope John Paul II, which is not possible because he's dead. But Pope,
he's present at every mass.
That's true. The Communion of Saints. Yeah. But if I'm, celebrating with Pope Francis and I don't know Latin or Italian or whatever language he's speaking in, I would just simply hold out my hand. And make kind of just a general intention of concelebrating with him.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's not really strict, hard and fast rules of that.
Right.
So let's talk about bread and wine. Can we use cinnamon bread?
Why not? That's in the spirit of the council.
Wow.
I believe there are restrictions on what it can contain, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like wheat and
Such
water.
a literalist.
Wheat and water should be it.
And that's it.
Should be it, yes.
What happens if I've had leavened bread?
Leavened bread is valid but not licit. Which means
fascinating. I did not know that.
Yes. There was one time. Now this is down in Baltimore, so you'll have to excuse it. But there was one time I was hiking, and I was a seminarian. I was hiking with a priest, and we got to the top of this mountain. I was leading this group of boys up this mountain. We get to the top, and we're like, we're gonna have mass. It's great. He's like, did you bring the host? No. Did you bring the host? No. Shoot. It's like 20 miles back to the campsite, and I'm like, oh man, it's not good. So he's like, I'll take care of it. He starts running down the trail. He comes up with this family that's coming up, and he says, do you guys have any bread? They're like, actually, we're going to make sandwiches up top. We have a whole loaf of Wonder Bread.
Oh, there you go.
And so he took it and he used it as Eucharist.
What about a tortilla that only has
no
wheat and water? Tortilla.
I think
it's unleavened.
Valid.
It's got no yeast.
Yeah, but the leavening doesn't matter.
Oh, the leavening doesn't matter.
Well, it does matter.
You said it's not licit.
Not licit, which means it's still valid.
But like Wonder Bread is going to have enriched and a lot of other junk in it.
No. That's I think still valid.
It still is valid
as long as it's.
I think we're brushing past the illicit thing too quickly. It's not okay. It's still
it's not
liturgical abuse.
No, but that's a serious question. Like if you're using bread that's enriched with niacin and riboflavin and this and that and the other thing, like those aren't naturally occurring.
What does the missal say about riboflavin, Father? Could you turn to that section?
You know what I mean? Like Wonder Bread is enriched with calcium and vitamin and B vitamins and all that kind of stuff.
Is it bad that I choose whole wheat hosts because they're healthier than white hosts?
I'm assuming that's a joke.
No, I'm not. It's not a joke.
Really?
No, you really do. Yeah.
What about gluten-free hosts? They always have a tiny bit of gluten.
Right. They're never gluten-free. It's 0.0001%, super low gluten.
Right.
But it has to have gluten to be bread. Mm-hmm. So basically, it should be wheat bread with no additives. How many additives are allowed? I don't know. I'll let the church decide on that one. But
that's nice of you.
There's a pastor in our diocese who was telling me this story about, it became very customary in the 70s for people to bake their own bread for communion. And so one time he was celebrating mass with this home-baked loaf of bread. I guess it was unleavened, I don't know. And he gets to the fracturing right and he fractures it and it starts flowing out of the middle because it wasn't baked all the way. Oh. So they actually put Jesus back in the oven and took him back.
Well, if it's not, it has to be bread though. Like uncooked bread is not bread.
Isn't it?
Ooh.
Uncooked bread is not bread. It's dough.
Oh, you have an interesting point there. So would the
Yeah.
outside crust be Jesus, but not the inside gooey part?
I mean, it's not defined in canon law.
I don't know.
The church fathers did not foresee this happening, I think.
I heard stories of the home baked bread fiasco thing, where there's raisins. The priest doesn't realize until he gets to the word of institution, and then he has to pray silently in his mind, "May most of this," or something like that. You know, like it's like, all right, like
Just knock out the raisins. I mean,
oh
come
my
on, work
lord,
with
maybe we could do this properly. I
This
don't
makes
know.
me cry, and this is why people like turn to the traditional Latin mass. Right?
Buy
They're like
the
this kind of
ones-
stuff. Is
Yeah,
nuts.
right. Because the father tried
buy
using whole, goldfish for the
the
Eucharist.
hosts that are made for the mass.
Right. It's not that
Exactly.
hard.
And there you go.
Not a problem.
That's it.
Just do it right.
There's a couple
Just
of
do it right.
companies in the United States that make them.
A lot of people ask that. Who makes the bread? So who does?
There's like a company
Probably
in Rhode
nuns.
Island or something. Or
There's a company in Rhode Island
that
yeah.
makes for like half the country.
There's some nuns that make it too, but that unfortunately is dwindling. Less people are buying from the nuns. They're more expensive. But
Right.
what about wine? What kind of wine can you use?
Certain alcohol. You can use white or red.
Yeah.
You can.
You could use rosé.
It has to be grape wine.
You can use rosé. It does have to be grape. Yes. And I actually had a really big debate with a priest in our diocese as to whether or not you have to have a minimum alcohol content.
Do you?
I don't think you do.
I thought you did.
He was arguing like
12%.
15 or 16%.
Not
and I was
15 or
like,
16,
like that's
like
really
the
high.
heaviest wine.
Yeah, and like the sacramental wine's only 12.5%.
Yeah, I remember that. But the priest can get concession from the bishop to use like grape must, right?
Yes. Growing up, my priest was
Why? I feel like a
struggled.
alcoholic or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, my priest struggled with
I was wondering
alcoholism.
about that.
He was
Fascinating.
mustum. So
There's a thing in the missal though that specifies what happens if the priest suddenly realizes after consecrating the host that he actually is holding a chalice of water into which wine was never poured. So, which leads me to think there must be a minimum alcohol content.
Huh. I will say one time I was celebrating mass and I poured the wine and it had a different viscosity. I was like, what's going on here? And the altar server had accidentally taken some of the oil of the sick and filled the cruet with it.
Oh no.
And I mean, I caught that
You
before the
caught it.
consecration, but the reason he did that is because we had no more wine in the sacristy.
Oh.
So I had to stop mass, go over to the rectory, find a bottle of wine, and come back and finish mass. And it took me a good 25 minutes, 30 minutes to find this bottle of wine. It was crazy.
Wow.
It's not too many.
Wow.
Yeah. It was nuts.
Whoa, that's wild.
It was St. Mary's in Stamford. Yeah. But so let's talk about the vestments. What colors can we use in the liturgy?
Depends on the day.
Right.
And where you are in the world. Because some places have their a special color.
Do they really?
Some allow blue, some don't. Right?
There's a special color, I think, for the Ambrosian rite.
Oh,
Ooh,
really?
I didn't know that.
I believe I'm correct in saying.
Have you ever heard
Probably
the
not.
Ambrosian? Right? I've never heard the
No, but I think one of my minor life goals is to experience all the rites of the Catholic Church.
That's a
So-
lot because there's a lot of rights.
It's like 27.
Yeah. I have to be in Milan to experience
Yeah.
the Ambrosian rite. So
Yeah, there's a couple of rites. There's the Mozarabic rite, which is only in Toledo, Spain.
I watched a YouTube video of the Syro Malabar rite. This was after I put in my 2 weeks notice at work, so I was effectively off the clock, I didn't have much work to do, so I was watching. It's like 2.5 hours long. It's beautiful. Holy cow. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
It's awesome.
That's Byzantine of some sort, right?
No, it's actually in India.
Oh,
Syro
it's in
Malabar
India.
and Syro Malabar.
But it's not in a style that I would recognize from either Byzantine or Roman. Or
Oh, I don't know. I've never seen a Byzantine rite. It's recognizable insofar as there's a priest with vestments that look familiar, and you get with a host. You could tell obviously it's Catholic. It's beautiful.
That's interesting. I think a lot of people listening may not realize that we have so many different rites within the Catholic Church. They think the way their little parish does it is the only way, but
yeah, well, it's understandable, right? Because the Roman Catholic rite is so big and so vast that all the other ones are small. Like Ambrosian rite, it's only in like one diocese. I assume, right?
it's only in
Two.
Milan.
It's in Milan.
It's the only place you can do it.
Oh, like licitly is the only place you can do it.
Yeah.
There's no like church in the United States.
Nope, you can't do it outside of Milan.
I was in Milan. I should have gone.
You should have gone.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
At the time. Now I do.
But the main colors, right? Green, red, purple, white, or gold.
Yes.
Blue would be the
Rose.
main color, permissible in some cases. Rose, thank you.
And
Black.
Black.
Black,
We
my
just actually
favorite.
had this year we had a memorial mass for my grandmother who passed away in 2020, and so the priest wore black.
Good. I think it's a beautiful, fitting
Very
thing
cool looking.
What most people wear white, right?
for a funeral. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you wear black?
I don't have a black vestment. I'm going to hopefully get one soon. So instead, I use purple, which is allowed for funerals.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because white's a symbol of rejoicing. So unless I know the person's like lived a super virtuous, holy life, I don't want to rejoice, too soon. But purple's the color of repentance. So this is the perfect time to say, let's repent.
Interesting. Do we miss any colors, by the way? No. I think we got all of them.
I don't think so.
That's all the colors that there are, isn't there?
What?
Aren't those all the colors that exist?
Well, it's like white and
orange.
gold. They're like
Orange and
white
yellow,
and gold are like
Orange, yellow.
interchangeable, right?
Yeah, white and gold.
To some extent.
interchangeable.
Yeah, they are.
Blue, like for Marian feasts, will be kind of added to the white,
Yeah.
which is cool.
I loved how
Investments.
St. John Vianney said that he had a vestment made with just barely enough of a strip of white to be considered a white vestment, but mostly blue because he loved Our Lady so much.
Also, sometimes it looks almost silvery for Our Lady, which is really cool, like a silvery bluish situation.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you do the optional memorial for a day, do you have to? Well, I guess that would be a feast day. No, I guess no. Never mind. I take that back.
But yeah, like if it's a martyr's feast on like a Tuesday, you wear red.
Yeah.
Although I've almost never seen a priest like change the altar cloths to match.
That's an awful lot of work.
It must be.
Some churches they do.
Yeah. So St. John's Day used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't much to change for, unless it was like big feast day. But in case.
Yeah. So tell me, how many times can you receive Holy Communion in a day? Because I get asked this question a whole lot.
More than once.
It's twice. One has to be in the context of a mass, I believe.
See, I was always under the impression that you can receive it twice, but both have to be masses.
No, I could. I mean, I don't know, but I believe I've heard that it is, if you receive twice, at least one must be in the context of a mass.
Okay.
But that could be wrong. I don't know. My thinking is like if you go to some sort of, let's say you receive communion because you're homebound or something like that, and then for some unforeseen circumstance you end up in a mass or whatever. It's like a second. The thing's like if you do it the second time, it has to be a mass. You can't just be taking communion like every hour because you want to.
Yeah, you can't get in line and just get back in line and just circle around.
That's an interesting thing though, because I've been in a situation in which a priest consecrates too many hosts and it'll just hand you like 10. So receiving communion once. So it's one person, one sitting. Like,
yes. And that's the whole reason why the church has said for a long time only one per day, because people would kind of try to rack them up as if they're getting closer to Jesus by receiving 25 hosts instead of one. But yeah, it used to be very popular to have home masses. And so my parents had our priest over for a home mass with a few other people. And he consecrated so many hosts that we did actually go through the line twice. And he consecrated so much precious blood that we were going through the line of that twice. And the guy right in front of me consumed the rest. And I was so mad. I was like 9 or 10 years old at the time.
Oh, I see. But that's out of practical necessity, right?
Yes.
It's different.
Yeah, different practical necessity. So how much of a mass do you have to attend for it to count? Quote, unquote?
This is, I've heard so many different answers on this.
Yeah, do you have to come for the gospel? Or
yeah.
is it like...
I really don't know. I know that a priest cannot begin concelebrating, I think, after the main celebrants enter the altar, or enter the sanctuary rather, or kiss the altar. There's a point at which a concelebrating priest can't even join in.
Well, that makes sense. You don't want people just walking right up. But what about for a regular
I have no idea.
person?
Isn't like there's no rule on it, right? Am I right about that? Or is there a rule? I think it's like prudential judgment or something like that.
It used to be the gospel.
Right.
You had to attend to the gospel before the gospel. Yeah.
Right.
Now I think it depends on the circumstances. Right? You're trying to get there, it's the last mass of the day and you get a flat tire. And so you come in, right after the gospel or whatever.
Or if a hypothetical priest in our diocese begins 8:00 mass at 7:55 every morning.
That doesn't sound hypothetical.
Yeah.
Hypothetically speaking, and your hypothetical interlocutor sometimes shows up a little bit late, meaning at 8:00, and they're
for a daily mass,
and they're already mid gospel.
You're already way.
They're already mid
behind.
gospel.
So that can be a real issue.
Yeah.
But yeah. So finally, last question, because we're running out of time. If you could give one piece of advice to help make the mass not boring, what piece of advice would you give to our listeners? How to get something out of the mass? How to really engage in it?
Show up looking to what you can give, not what you can receive.
I like that.
Yeah, I would say learn the words, pay attention to the prayers, conform your whole body to the sacrifice that's happening in front of you. Worship with your whole body. It's hard to zone out when you're doing that.
Beautiful.
What would you say, Father?
I would say come to mass not solely out of obligation, but because you deeply want to love the Lord. It's really about your intention entering into it. And you will get great, amazing graces. Amazing graces. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Restless. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about the Mass, and hopefully you grew an appreciation for the depths of the riches and the wisdom and just the amazing nature of what the Mass is. Tune in next time.
Hopefully that answers some of your questions about Mass from this week, and especially coming off of Holy Week. Maybe you had a chance to go a little more frequent, got into that routine, which is what Lent's for, right? To create better habits and a closer walk with God. So if you want to check out Restless or even other podcasts, we've got that available on our Podcast Central section. Go to EWTNradio.net, and all this week you got plenty of programs to choose from at your disposal, and you can download our mobile app as well to have them with you anytime, anywhere. I'm Ace McKay. Remember this week to let God define who you are, and I'll see you again with Catholics Coast to Coast.